News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Hey, yeah, the permit requirement, I think, is basically for law enforcement paper trail purposes. You know, they like to know if the person that they find carrying a gun on school property actually has had any kind of safety training. It makes sure they're not convicted felons or, you know, domestic disturbance misdemeanors or have been mentally adjudicated or adjudicated mentally defective.
Yeah, well, and that's the purpose of permits. I mean, permits are there for the government to have a paper trail, and the problem I have with that is, you know what happens when they have paper trails on who's going to be carrying.
Oh, I'm well aware of the fears. I've always been one who's slightly paranoid of government intervention. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do with that these days because one way or the other, the government is going to find out where the gun owners are. And if it comes to the point where they come knocking on doors demanding that we give up our guns, you're pretty much going to know whether you have a concealed carry permit or not. If you have a gun on the premises, you're still going to be viewed as a criminal.
Yeah, it's a sticky situation. I get I get the people that want to have a permit, especially for reciprocity purposes, because I mean, you know, if you have a Wyoming permit, you can carry in most states. So it's a useful thing to have.
The funny thing about that is, and yes, you're right. That is a big boon to having gone through the government hoops and getting a permit. You can take the trip over to Rapid City and still be secure in your person. However, if this thing goes through and it becomes contingent upon the local school district, I don't know who would actually be making the decisions here. As you know, the bill isn't even. I don't even think it's technically in a finished form. I guess when it gets signed by the governor and it gets made into law, it will be, you know, we can debate the letters of it and say, well, so-and-so over in this district isn't going to allow it because he doesn't like yahoos running around with guns on school property, and then maybe in some other more conservative school district, you know, in another corner of the state, maybe that guy isn't going to have a big issue with it. But basically it puts the power to disarm the public into the hands of someone who's not
qualified.
I would say constitutionally allowed to do so.
Yeah. And not to mention the Wyoming Constitution also has a preemption clause that local governments, and I assume, and I could be wrong about that, but I assume that would extend to school boards as well, that they're not allowed to have stricter gun regulations than the rest of the state. So there might even be a legal issue with it. Again, like you said, it's not in finished form. I mean, they have one more vote. Somebody's probably going to try to stick some more amendments in it today.
Yeah, and see, that's the problem with our government as it sits right now, is that basically you've got a bunch of people that want to do something, and they have the majority of doing something, and generally public opinion is behind it. But then somebody goes along and says, well, we're going to amend this to make it so it's unpalatable to anybody who likes the original bill as it was written. And so they're either going to pass it and basically castrate the bill, or the people that eventually supported it are just going to withdraw support and let it die. And I think that's probably what's been happening in committees for the last 2 to 3 years when these similar things have been brought up.
Yeah, so either way, nobody's happy.
Yeah.
I get where you're going with that. Yeah, I guess that's one of the downfalls of the process we have. It's sometimes you end up with a situation where nobody gets what they want.
Well, yeah, and if this is passed and it does have the amendment on it to where the school districts can make the ultimate decision, that can always be fought. I mean, I know some people that would be like, anything that allows more freedom of firearms is a good thing. You know, it's one more step in the right direction versus government saying, no, you're not allowed to do this, no, you're not allowed to do that, which is basically flying in the face of the Constitution, as some people interpret it. I mean, some people will interpret the Second Amendment to be without restriction. That means felons, that means crazy people, that means anybody can run around and legally own firearms. Now, you and I, both being reasonable adults, would say, no, I think we need to put a limit on that. The Constitution doesn't, but state laws and local laws can and should. However, if this is voted in, you know, it becomes law, it's up to the rest of us, the citizens who are law-abiding, to bring it to, I guess, just to make enough of a statement to say, look, you know, there's absolutely no reason why concealed carry permit holders shouldn't be allowed to carry a weapon on school property. They're not going to go out and pull a James Holmes. There's not going to be a Sandy Hook because of us. Yeah, well, the other guys you need to worry about.
Yeah. Now, and say this passes how it is right now, and 5 years down the road they figure out, well, nobody shot up a school. Then the next step would be extending that to all legal gun owners. So, I mean, I understand the idea of it being the first step, and I don't really like the bill as it is, but if it passes, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thanks a lot for the call. I think we have another one. This has been on hold for a minute, but we'll give it a shot. And sorry we didn't get to you as soon as we did. Oh, maybe they're back. We'll give this a shot. News Talk 1270. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, what's
John.
up? Yeah, what's up?
One thing that I'm in favor of the concealed carry permit for schools and some of the things. I know everything has unintended circumstances, but you at least have people who have some training in firearms, as opposed to just Leroy who goes in and buys a gun and straps it on his hip, doesn't know anything about using it or anything else. You know, so in order to get a concealed carry permit, you do have to have some kind of training, even if it's a hunter safety course. There is some kind of training that you have to have, and I think that's a plus in those cases. I'm with you and that other guy on the paper trail. I don't like that because that's what happened in Holland back in World War II when the Nazis came in. They had this program in Holland, the city officials, and they were registering firearms just so they knew who they belonged to.
Oh, yeah.
And when the Nazis came in, England sent in a ship and rescued all the officials out of Holland, and the Nazis marched in and went right to their version of the courthouse and pulled out the lists of everybody's guns, who had them, and they went door to door. And this is, you know, you can read about this. They went door to door, and if you couldn't produce the weapon or reasonably convince them that you had sold it or lost it, they drug you into the street and shot you in the head.
Yeah. Well, and here's and this is something that I doubt would ever happen here, but this is. Yeah. Well, this is. I mean, I'll share with you a story from a couple years ago. A guy that lives in Florida, has a concealed carry permit in Florida, is driving to see family up north. He's driving up I-95. He drives, I-95 goes up through Washington, goes up through Baltimore. He's driving through Maryland in the suburbs of Baltimore. Gets pulled over at a toll booth. He gets pulled over, goes through a toll booth. Somebody runs his tags. And what happens is when you have a concealed carry permit, it's tied to your driver's license. When a police officer brings up your information in the computer, it shows you have a concealed carry permit. Now, Maryland being Maryland isn't exactly friendly to the Second Amendment. So they tear this guy's car apart. Where's your gun? Where's your gun? My gun's in Florida. I left it at home because I knew I couldn't carry in Maryland. They don't recognize. They tear this guy's car apart. They take him down to the police station, question him for 12 hours, do thousands of dollars of damage to his car. Of course, he didn't have a gun. He knew the laws. He was following the law. They let him go finally. but his car is torn apart, ruined his
Sure.
vacation. That's one of the reasons why I do not like the idea of permits.
Well, that's a good point, and I never thought of that. Now, I do know that anybody that has a concealed carry permit knows that if you have the weapon with you and you get pulled over, then in addition to showing your driver's license, you must also notify the officer. You give the officer your permit a card as well.
Yeah, that's good form. Yeah.
Yeah, but the stories get even worse. I don't know if you remember. I don't remember how long ago, a year ago maybe. There was a fella flying from, I think, someplace like Arizona or someplace, and he checked his weapon in his checked baggage. He cleared it through them. They said, that's fine, that's no problem, you're legal. He's on his way to East Coast someplace. But the flight gets diverted, and he lands in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to unload his baggage and stuff there. Now when he goes to recheck it in New Jersey to continue his flight, he notifies them again that he has this weapon in his baggage. Now in New Jersey, they don't have that same law. They put him in jail because it's illegal to check a weapon. This is the way the story went. In New Jersey, even if you're checking it in your baggage, and there he was stuck.
Oh yeah. Well, just last week, a guy in New Jersey gets pulled over. He's got a flintlock pistol that's not even an operating position. Condition. He gets arrested for a 300-year-old antique flintlock. Now,
I read that. Yep.
Even under federal regulations, black powder pistols aren't considered quote unquote weapon. This is something that the ATF will tell you the same thing too. Black powder pistols are not considered firearms. So convicted felons, crazy people, anybody can own a black powder pistol. That's how ridiculous the rules are. You can order black powder, and I did. I mean, I got a black powder pistol for Christmas, and you can just order it in the mail, and they ship it right to you, just like anything else. And I don't understand why my black powder pistol is just as powerful as the 9mm I carry every day.
Well, that's exactly right.
And
it's just crazy.
The laws make no sense.
Well, absolutely. There's the letter of the law, and then there's the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
We have a letter of the law that we need to go by, and I think that's but there's the spirit of the law that says, wait a minute, all right, this guy's traveling from here to there and gets diverted to here or whatever, and I have to take that into consideration. But power corrupts, and absolute power absolutely corrupts. And that's what we're up in a lot of cases. You have people with power and absolute power, and they're going to exercise it to the letter of the law, far beyond the spirit of the law.
Yeah, and it's funny. I could go to the sheriff's office today, right now, probably have a concealed carry permit in 20 minutes. I think that's how easy it is in this state.
No. You can have the application. I just sent my wife's in. We sent hers in about 3 weeks ago. She had to fill out the application. We had to send a copy of her hunter safety permit, and $68. You have to be fingerprinted. That cost, I think it was $10 or $15, and then it sent in, and we haven't gotten it back in. It'll probably be another month or so before we
Oh, really? Is it that slow around here? Wow.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yep. Well, some states you can go to the sheriff's office and walk out with your permit the same day, within a half hour. But the reason I don't do that is because I travel in states that if they ran my license, found out I had a permit, they'd tear my car apart. They'd question me. They give me the 12th degree, and I just don't want that. I don't want that problem. And since the state of Wyoming is enlightened enough to allow me to carry without a permit, I'll carry without a permit.
Well, that's good, and I like that. But I agree with the last fellow just called, and that's why I wanted my wife to have a concealed carry permit, because she's used to carrying that little thing in her purse.
Yeah.
She happens to drive over to Walmart in Spearfish and forgets about it and gets stopped at a traffic check or whatever, and here she's got it without a permit. Now she's breaking the law.
Yeah, see, now that's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, there are pluses and minuses to both of them. If I leave the state, I have to leave my weapon at home. I guess now in South Dakota you can open carry legally without a permit.
I think so. Plainview.
But I don't like open carry. So that's.
Well, I don't either. I'm not a fan of that. To me, it's just kind of showing off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind people that do it. It's just not my style.
Yeah. And if you happen to be in a store and you're open carrying, and there is a bad guy in there, and he sees you with a weapon,
you're the first one.
You're probably his first target.
Yeah. That's another reason. Plus, I mean, I don't. If I had a big flashy. A big flashy 1911 chromed out with pearl grips or something, I'd do it. But I mean, I carry a Glock. There's nothing special about it.
Oh, wow. You're one of those.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And we'll take one more call. Chris is in here too, so if you feel like chiming in, feel free.
Sure.
Okay. Well, they weren't. Okay, they weren't with us. So, well, I'll get your view on this. Now, you're not a gun owner, so at least I don't think you are you?
I don't. Yeah, I don't have one here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but I mean, have you ever gone hunting or done?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Well, you're from Kansas, so it's part of the lifestyle there. Well, I'll get your opinion on this. What do you think about carry permits? Good thing, bad thing?
We don't need permits to carry.
Well, that's always been my point of view. I mean, the Second Amendment is your permit.
Yeah, it shall not be infringed upon.
Yeah.
I don't understand why, and it's always funny to me because I know this might be kind of out in left field, but as far as minorities are concerned, topic-wise, you never hear that, but there's a lot of minorities in the inner city that will get gun charges for carrying a gun in their car.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll go to jail for it for a while.
Otherwise, law-abiding people that are just carrying something for self-defense.
Yeah, and I'm talking there's people sometimes where you live, you have to carry to protect yourself. They're law-abiding citizens. I mean, you know what? NFL players get all the time. They get in trouble for having guns in their car, and then they're automatically judged. Well, I mean, I didn't grow up in the ghetto. I didn't grow up in a bad part of a city. If I did, though, I would carry to protect myself.
Yeah. Well, and of course, because it's better to be in jail than dead.
Yeah, and they're getting in trouble for it, getting arrested because of it. Why? Why are you getting arrested for carrying your firearm in your car? Yeah. That doesn't make sense. Well, you own both of them. And you should be able to carry both of them. And it's funny because a lot of the African-American leaders don't ever talk about something like this.
Well, and it's funny because the answer you always get to from the people that are law and order types. Well, why don't they just get a permit? If you've ever lived in Chicago or Los Angeles or in New York City, it's not that easy. I mean, I know that the Supreme Court has said that everyone has the right to a permit as long as they're not a convicted felon or a nut job, but that's not working in practice. I mean, the Washington, D.C. just lost that big lawsuit. They have to give out permits. They've given out 16 concealed carry permits. New York City, the average paperwork and legal fees and lawyers and all of that to get a concealed carry permit in New York City costs about $10,000, and you have to prove that you need it to protect your life. So generally, only rich and famous people are allowed to carry in New York City. I know someone who has a New York City carry permit. It took him 3 years to get it, and the only reason he got it is because his best friend was a New York City cop. I mean, that's who helped run the application, but it cost him $10,000.
That's ridiculous. And we're supposed to be. I thought it was innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, we have to prove that we're law-abiding citizens to carry a gun.
Yeah.
In certain issues like this, I think of if you ask Thomas Jefferson, some of the forefathers about if you could go back in time and say, in the future of America, we have to get permits to carry, they would either laugh at how ridiculous it is, or they'd be very angry because that is not what they intended.
Yeah. Well, and the
Revolutionary War wouldn't have happened if you had to have a permit.
We're going to fight for this. You're on your own.
Yeah.
But the other thing about it is one of the problems. Obviously, the registration issue I have a problem with, but this is also the only right that you have to ask permission to exercise.
Yeah,
and that's over my head to a level where I can't even see it.
And it's one of the most important rights, because without this right, all the other stuff meaningless. Freedom of speech meaningless. The Fourth Amendment meaningless. Any of them, because you can't protect those rights. That's what the Second Amendment's for.
Yeah. Well,
to protect all the other freedoms you have.
Just think about it. Say before you wanted to post something on Facebook, because that's how most people express their political opinions these days. They post something online. They make a blog, or they do post something on Twitter, or back in the old days, they would type up a flyer and hang it on, in the town square. Just imagine having to get a permit to exercise your speech. I mean, I know the FCC used to require radio operators to have an FCC license, and they got rid of that. But that was just to make sure that you could operate the equipment. I mean, the equipment's all automated now, so it's that's an antiquated thing, and that's obviously got rid of that. But for me, I mean, this is what I do. I exercise First Amendment rights every day. I can't even imagine having to ask permission for that. Or Fourth Amendment rights, having to ask permission to stop someone from searching your car when you get pulled over.
Right.
Fifth Amendment rights, having to have a permit to not incriminate yourself at a trial. Oh, you're on trial for murder? Well, you're going to have to testify because you didn't get a permit, or you forgot to pay your $50 fee. You forgot to pay your tax stamp.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
As a people, we kind of, I always am a believer of the people to get the government they deserve. And this is really our fault, because every time there's a shooting or something, a mass shooting, everybody, we can do some things. It's a knee-jerk reaction, and we don't think of the big picture.
It's funny because I think Second Amendment rights are the only rights that are going the right way right now. More and more states are enacting constitutional carry. I think within my lifetime, I think we'll see the elimination of the Gun Control Act of 1968, which, background checks and all that kind of stuff. I honestly think within 20 or 30 years, we'll see the end of that. I think we're actually, and I don't know why it is. Maybe it's just because Second Amendment advocates are so passionate about what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only right that we're seeing advances in. Every other right is going south.
I think my theory on that is why people are actually fighting for the Second Amendment more than they even did, 10, 15 years ago, is because we're right now as a people, and it goes beyond party lines. It goes beyond what your political thinking is. I think we're all skeptical of the federal government.
Yeah. And I think more and more people understand that amendment is there to protect us from the gun. It's not there for hunting. It's not there for self-defense in the ghetto. Those are nice side effects of it.
Right.
But the real reason that amendment is there is to protect us from a tyrannical government. And I think more and more people know that. And you're seeing it in numbers. I mean, people are getting involved in Second Amendment groups at record numbers. People are buying guns in record numbers. They're getting involved in shooting sports, which, again, is not really the reason for the Second Amendment, but it shows they're interested in becoming proficient. And let's face it, it is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. People are starting to realize that the gun's not going to jump up out of the safe and shoot you.
Exactly.
I mean, I say that all the time. I have I have a case full of guns at home. I keep them all loaded, even the black powder pistol. I keep that loaded.
And
they've never jumped out of the case and shot anybody.
And it's we mentioned the skepticism of the government going beyond party lines, and the reason is both parties, because both parties attack our freedoms. As far as First Amendment, both parties attack the First Amendment. Both parties have attacked the Second Amendment, more so on the left as far as gun control and stuff like that, but also the Fourth Amendment. I mean, the Patriot Act. So I think they're skeptical because why all of a sudden is the First Amendment always being attacked, the Second Amendment always being attacked, the Fourth Amendment always being attacked? And that's going to worry people. So then you got to cling to our Second Amendment because that's what protects the other ones.
Yep, and there's a reason why they were all in there. I mean, each one has a role in protecting the others. So, well, another enlightening conversation. And I see we have a caller. I'm sorry we can't get to you, but I'm way behind. I've gone like 40 minutes without taking a break. So I got to take a break. We got to get our guests in here in just a few minutes. So we'll be back in a few minutes. News Talk 1270 KIML.
Basin Radio News, Fox News, Cowboy State News.
More news than you can shake a stick at.
Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.